You're listening to Juneau Afternoon. I'm Shelley Delaney. Today, we dedicate one of our newly remodeled studios to Jeff Brown, someone who's been with KTOO almost as long as it's been in existence, starting off here as a volunteer in 1975. As well as being a former host of this show, program manager for the radio station from 1985 to 2018, and a founding father of the Alaska Folk Fest, Jeff Brown has also been the official entertainer for 4 governors, a magician, a balloon artist, creator of Southeast Native radio series, We Like Kids music program, and he authored and self-published Real Alaskans magazine. I could go on, but I'd like to hear from my first guest, KTOO President and General Manager Bill Legere. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Shelley. Happy to be here with you today on what is a happy occasion for us.
Agree. Bill, what are some of the biggest impacts you feel Jeff had on you when he worked here?
Wow. Well, been trying to remember when I first met Jeff, and it was before I even came to Juneau, before I worked here. I was a news director in Petersburg at the radio station, and I was traveling home from Bethel to Petersburg and got stuck, and I slept on Jeff Brown's floor at his Gold Street house. And that would have been, I think, 1980 or 1981. So we go back that far. And of course, Jeff was the voice of KTOO, the spirit of everything we did. After I started working at KTOO in 1985, I would often just ask myself, how would Jeff handle this? What would Jeff do? You would always want to do right by the community and the volunteers. And so I can't even begin to describe the enormous impact he has had on the history, the DNA of KTOO.
Today's event has been a long time coming. When was it first decided that a studio should be dedicated to Jeff?
Well, it was another lifetime before COVID. We started on this project in 2017 to design and secure the funding to remodel the radio studios, which were first built in 1995 and had some problems with acoustics and air handling, and they'd become pretty hard used over the years since 95. And after we had the design in place and we knew what they were going to look like, we decided that we should offer the opportunity to dedicate studios to people who made a significant difference to KTOO and the community. So someplace in that time frame, it just became apparent that we should honor Jeff in Studio 2B, which is the studio that KRNN originates from and the music volunteer programs come from. And it just seemed like a place where Jeff spent a lot of time, and we should honor him with a permanent dedication of that studio to Jeff.
And it was the Better Sound Project that provided that opportunity, right? Do you want to say a little about that?
Sure. Just, briefly, we engaged our local architect, Wayne Shenson at Shensi Yorba Wall, to help us with the design. And he brought in an acoustic architect from Seattle. And the main purpose of the project was to improve the acoustics of the studios. But at the same time, we also repaired the air handling system, did new lighting, created a 5th new studio, Studio K, the studio that Juneau Afternoon comes from, as a way to do a complete refresh. And the other part of that project was to relocate the KRNN and KXLL transmitters to Hawk Mountain when we were forced to move from our location on Douglas Island. So it was one large project funded mainly by the Murdoch Trust of Vancouver, Washington. The Murdoch Trust funded the studio remodeling portion of the project. We also had funding from the Rasmussen Foundation, and we turned to KTOO listeners to help us fund the rest of the project, and had a year-long fundraising campaign to raise the money to both remodel the studios and move the transmitters.
Turning now to Cheryl Snyder, our Vice President. Hi, Cheryl.
Hello, Shelley.
You were a big part of that campaign to raise the funds for the studio remodel and this project to honor Jeff Brown with a studio dedication. What was the response like from the community?
Oh, my goodness. It was amazing. We had a modest goal of raising $7,500 to contribute to doing the redesign and remodel in the KRNN studio. in honor of Jeff. And the community reaction was like immediate. And we ended up raising more than $16,000, so more
Whoa.
than double the goal. And I just remember, all of the contributions just coming in with just some beautiful notes and memories that people were sharing. And it was just, it was so heartwarming because for a guy who dedicated his life to building community, to have the community come out and force to do this really great thing for him was just it was just perfect, really. It's great. And so, when we look at that studio, we look at the dedication, we can think about all the people who contributed to make sure that it was dedicated to Jeff.
Now, you worked with Jeff for a long time as well. Were you surprised by the outpouring of support?
No, I mean, we hadn't done a capital campaign like that in a very long time, and so you never quite know how people are come out. But no, I mean, we know that Jeff has impacted so many lives for so many years in this town in so many ways. It was just more heartwarming to see that kind of response.
Well, one of the people that he worked with and played with over his tenure at KTOO is Ed Schoenfeld. Ed's on the call with us now today. Ed, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself? Yeah, there you go.
Hi, I'm Ed Schoenfeld,
Hi, Ed.
and I worked with Jeff at KTOO back when I was program director and worked in news in the late 70s and first half of the 1980s, and ended up being one of Jeff's housemates and have worked with him on a whole variety of projects, including music and humor and radio theater and a variety of other things over the year. And mostly I'm just in awe of him.
Tell us a little more about how you met and how you got to know him.
Well, I'm not exactly remembering when I met Jeff, but he was just kind of a constant presence at KTOO. This is when we were in an old church where the spam can building, I guess doesn't look like a spam can anymore, is on North Franklin Street. And he was just around doing music shows and other things. At some point, he started the 20th Century Bluescast with some other folks. And when I came back to K2 after being gone for a little while and started doing news, I became part of that and ended up taking it on stage. And Jeff was always, right, if people don't know the Bluescast, it was essentially a group of people, mostly people in news, at least at the beginning, who just liked to make fun of the news and make write songs and do skits about contemporary issues and social issues, cultural issues. And Jeff was always there with, let's do this, let's do that, let's try this. So it's something we did on the radio, we did it in person at Comedy Club and some events. He actually ended up taking that to 60 Minutes. There was a show with a segment on Wally Hickel. And when the crew was in town, we kind of squeezed our way onto a Concerts in the Park performance, and they came and they videotaped that, and Jeff wrote a song called Wally World. Jeff wrote hundreds of songs, if not thousands, and quite a few about Wally Hickel, who is a controversial governor for those who are more recent to Alaska. And he wrote this song called Wally World. We've got oil, we've got gas, we've got a pipeline up our pass right here in Wally World. Lots of things for you. I think we have a caribou right here in Wally World, etc. And it wasn't nasty. It was just making fun, and that's something I always admired of Jeff. But Jeff always was coming up with new things. One day when I was sharing a house with him, I realized there was some stained glass works around and pieces of glass, and that was Jeff's new hobby, and he went with that for a while. And then there were balloon animals, and he and some friends put together a group called Arts Are Us, and they put on these incredible shows with just really creative and sometimes experimental performances and artwork. And I could go on, but I won't. I think the main thing to say about Jeff is he was very good at bringing people together to do creative things, and his sense of humor, his ability to get people laughing and to get other people laughing really was great in that it relieved tension. And people could talk about an issue a lot more if they were laughing about it rather than if they were just staring at each other and glaring, something we could use today.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And also with all the with the humor, and he and I were working here at KTOO for the same time for a few years, and I really enjoyed. He'd had all these funny signs that he would post around the station. Every week there was a new one. He made sure he gave me multiple copies of Real Alaskans magazine, and basically every exchange with him, there'd be joking, and it's yeah, it really did make working with him such a treat. Well, Ed, we have a little clip here that you provided. It's a pretty good sample of some of the comedy that Jeff performed. Do you want to set it up for us?
Sure. This was a skit called, I think, The Last State Workers. And essentially, it was at a time when budget cutting was happening. Of course, that's been going on and off, mostly on for decades here. But I think this was in the late 80s. And he and Carl Oles are two old state workers who were sitting on a bench somewhere trying to reminisce about what life was like before state government shut down due to lack of oil money.
Let's listen.
And now, a special report. The 20th Century Bluescast takes you live to the future, to a typical downtown Juneau street scene in the year 2010.
Hey, come on, this is gonna be fun!
Bet I can break more windows than you can!
You can't break more windows than I can!
Hey, you! Wake up!
What's that? What's that?
Wake up, I said. Kids have no respect for property these days. Look at them. They're on their way to throw rocks at the windows in that old abandoned building up there.
Oh, yeah. Why, that's the state office building. The old state office building, isn't it? I spent 30 years there in the paperwork enforcement division, spelling section. How about you?
My gosh, doggies, it's been so long, I'd almost forgotten. Worked 35 years in the Department of Needless Application Forms. And the hoops we used to make people jump through just to get a box of paper clips.
The one thing I'll never forget is the paperwork. Memorandums, internal briefing documents, applications. Why, my division's paperwork production exceeded any other state government, that's a fact.
Oh, yeah. Heck, I remember one week in 1983, my department turned out more memorandums than there were people in the entire state of Alaska. And these weren't your dinky 1 or 2 page jobs either. They were 20 pages long, single-spaced and with no paragraphs.
Well, yeah, well, with us, it wasn't just a weekly thing. We processed that much paperwork every single day of the year.
Yep, we did. Except weekends.
Yeah, Alaska's Day.
Man Seward's Day.
And Martin Luther King's birthday.
Personal leave days.
Sick leave days.
Paternity leave.
Bereavement leave.
Woolly Mammoth Day.
President's Day.
And Sherry Shelley Day.
That was a couple of minutes of 20th Century Bluescast, and thanks to Ed Schoenfeld for providing us with that audio. You must have had a lot of fun with those performances, huh, Ed?
Oh, yes. And we had a regular following, and there were a few people who we always knew they were there because they had very recognizable laughs. But the fun thing was performing for new people and people who weren't familiar with what we did. And folks would sometimes say, "Can you do that? Don't you get in trouble for that?" And it's like, we're just telling jokes. So yes, it was a lot of fun, and Jeff was always leading the fun.
And that was him as the one of the old men there talking about his state job. I recognized his voice right away. I don't know if everyone else did. Well,
he does a great old man voice.
And as a longtime friend of Jeff's and speaking to an audience of many people who know him and many who don't, what would you like everyone to understand about Jeff's contributions to the community through public radio?
Well, I think Jeff, by his enthusiasm and his sense of humor and the fact that just about everybody who met Jeff or talked to him on the phone liked him, he's just spread that feeling that we were all part of it. So it wasn't just me on this side of the microphone and you on your radio listening or these days online. It was Jeff really making everybody feel like they're in on the joke and part of the game. I know some of it doesn't come through over the decades, but he was a community builder both locally and regionally, and he was part of the statewide public radio and journalism scene too, and won awards for that.
Well, thanks, Ed. I appreciate you sharing all of that. And without further ado, I think it's time to move on to the virtual unveiling. And we have with us now Callie Connerton. Hi, Callie.
Hey, Shelly. How's it going?
Good, good. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Callie Connerton, and I am super lucky to be the daughter of Jeff Brown. So his pride and joy is he always used to call me and he was like, "Do you want to see a picture of my pride and joy?" And then his joke was that he would show everyone a picture of a Joy soap bottle before showing them a picture of me, because he always wanted to make people laugh. So I'm super excited for this unveiling virtually, of course.
Do you know if your dad is listening today?
He is listening at home on the couch with snacks, because snacks are not allowed in the studio. I learned that very young, that snacks and liquids and anything that could get stuck anywhere, Play-Doh, was not allowed in the studio. So, but yes, he's listening, as well as my brother is listening in Texas, and of course my mom with him snacking away on the couch. So
that's great. Well, let's hope he likes what he hears. Bill, I'd like to turn it over to you now for a description of what's been done in the studio for Jeff.
Sure. Yeah. And let me try to set the scene here for people listening on radio. We're doing this on Zoom. Usually we would do a big event like this with a crowd of people in person and with refreshments and, in the KTOO tradition. But for everybody's safety, we're doing this virtually on Zoom today. So we're all at our homes. But in Studio 2B, which is one of the 5 radio studios at KTOO, we're going to unveil a special panel dedicating the studio to Jeff. It's a beautiful design designed by Tana Peters. And it's 2 feet wide by 4 feet high. It's actually an acoustic sound panel with images of Jeff and a dedication to him printed on the panel. So it's actually part of the acoustics in the room. And it will be the first thing you see when you step into Studio 2B going forward into the future. And we'll also be dedicating Studio 2K to another important person in KTOO's history in a few months, but this is the first studio that we've actually dedicated to anybody at KTOO. And the panel is being unveiled electronically now. I think we're watching it on Zoom here, and it's ready to be permanently installed in the room. And I'm going to ask Callie if she could read the dedication inscription. There's a few paragraphs about Jeff's contribution to KTOO that'll be a permanent part of this space in the studio. Callie, do you have it in front of you? Can you read it for us?
Thank you. I do. Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Bill. So on the panel, it says, Jeff Brown began volunteering at the newly minted KTOO FM in 1975. The station was then broadcasting from a broom closet in the Juneau Douglas High School auditorium. Little did he know that this would be the start of a lifelong career in radio and television. Jeff held a variety of positions at KTOO over the years and produced several unique programs. We Like Kids ran for over a decade and aired on over 65 radio stations nationwide. Every year, Jeff looked forward to the producing of the live broadcast of the Alaska Folk Festival in its entirety. From the setup to takedown, Jeff never missed an afternoon or evening concert. And who can forget his most exciting live broadcast produced from atop a live elephant while he rode it up Franklin Street. Jeff has filled KTOO and Juneau with laughter, merriment, joy, with his music, magic, balloon animals, mazes, real Alaska magazines, and puzzle books for kids. Jeff's main goal always is to put a smile on the faces of the people he meets. What Jeff values most at his time at KTOO are the many friends that he made from the generations of KTOO volunteers, coworkers, and the community members. Jeff leaves a legacy at KTOO of kindness, acceptance, and the belief that everyone has something valuable to offer the world.
Well, thank you, Callie. And with that, we officially dedicate Studio 2B at KTOO, the KRNN studio, to Jeff Brown. And I just want to say hello and send my best to Jeff and Maureen as they listen to us this afternoon. And Callie, thank you. One of the photos I remember of Jeff the most is you sitting on your dad's shoulders when we moved into the new building, new for us, in 1995. And you were, small enough to fit on his shoulders at the time.
2 or 3 years old, depending on when you moved.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years old. And we have been, you can't, for radio listeners can't see this, but we've been watching video clips while we've been talking here. And we actually have video of Jeff and Annabelle Lund riding elephants down South Franklin Street in Juneau that we will share on the website. It's been amazing to be able to see some video of Jeff in action, both as Joe Gorilla and on that elephant ride. So we'll share that shortly. Callie, is there anything else you want to say about your dad while we're together here today?
I mean, there's so much I could say about my dad. I mean, my entire life has been about has been circled around KTOO. There was always music on in our house, and he was always playing music, or there was always the radio on. Even if I decided that I didn't like the particular programming, it had to be on to make sure that we were on the air. And I don't know if it was due to the fact that we lived 2 blocks to, 6 blocks away from the studio my entire life, but he was always the first one that got called. And I remember, at bedtime, Dad needs to go make sure that the radio is on the air. So his dedication and love for KTOO, the love for the DJs and the community and the programming and the family that was made at KTOO and all the volunteers truly was a humongous part of his life. And I'm so lucky to have witnessed it all. So
thank you for that, Callie.
Not all of it. So I've only 30 years. But.
30 years of it. Yeah. Thank you for that, Callie. And that love comes back from all of us, all of the volunteers and all of the people who have worked with Jeff. So we're proud to dedicate the studio to him today. Shelley, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Bill and Callie. We all hope that he can feel how much it means to us as well to be able to thank him in some way for all that he's given to KTOO and to our community through public radio. No one will ever fill his comically large shoes.
Well, if they, want to try, we have a couple pairs of clown shoes that if they would like to try them on, it's not, they're not being made anymore. They're welcome to try if they're his size.
Thanks, Callie. Bill, Cheryl, Ed, Callie, thank you all for being here today and for allowing me to facilitate this dedication ceremony. That was a real treat and honor for myself as well. Last but not least, as we close out today, we'll hear from a few of the many volunteers that Jeff Brown personally put on the board to be live host of music and talk programs, making sure that there would always be lots of local voices on our airwaves, and yet another contribution that he's made that we know our listeners find so valuable. So please enjoy.
This is Mike Zacharias. Jeff got my daughter on the air before me when he was producing We Like Kids in the late 80s. Jeff suggested I could be a DJ if I wanted. After I practiced for a scant 30 minutes, he asked if I wanted to sub on a Mudlark sampler. That start led to hosting radio shows for 30 plus years. Jeff has always been a generous enabler as well as an instigator. Knowing and working with Jeff has led me to doing things radio and beyond that I never would have imagined. Thanks for everything, Jeff.
When I think of KTOO, I think of Jeff Brown. He embodies everything that is good about public broadcasting in Alaska. His passion, his kindness, his humanity, his humor, his commitment to excellence, and above all, his strong belief that public broadcasting helps connect people and make Alaskans better. Jeff, you so richly deserve to have this studio named for you, and I, Ben Brown, thank you so much for all you've done to help me be a part of the KTOO family over the years.
Jeff Brown, you have rocked my radio world for umpteen years. I'm so pleased that we're dedicating this studio to you. In fact, I think we should hang a pair of clown shoes from the ceiling in your honor. Love, Carolyn Miner.
Hello, Jeff. This is John Sievertson, host of Monday Morning Cross Currents. The truth is, Jeff, that every time I'm in the recording studio, whether at the radio station or at home, I think fondly of your professional dedication and your sense of good humor. You have and will continue to provide me a great source of inspiration. Thank you and best wishes, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. This is John Heifetz, the Heif, DJ on KRNN. I'd like to thank you for you taking me under your wing a few years back and being my mentor, as you always made it a lot of fun to be part of the KRNN family. Congratulations on this well-deserved studio dedication in your honor. Take care, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you have done for me personally and everything that you have done for Juneau and the KTOO community. The dedication of this studio in your name is a fitting tribute to your contribution. It is much appreciated.
Hello, Mr. Brown. Ricky D here. Congratulations, my friend. I am so pleased that this is finally taking place. I just wish I could be there to celebrate with you. What a fabulous recording studio. Thank you for being a mentor, a friend, and a compadre. And thank you for all your years of love and giving to our community. We miss you big time. Praise life and namaste.
Hey Jeff, Robert Sewell here. Want to say thank you for your many years of service to the community and certainly to Take 5 and more generally KTOO and then KRNN. Thanks for your guidance for me and your camaraderie. Can't say enough. Thank you.
Jeff, what I remember most is your patience as you trained me to be a KRNN DJ. I asked a lot of questions and sometimes ran into your office panic-stricken that I had pushed the wrong button. And you would always reassure me that I hadn't brought down the entire KTOO broadcast system. Thank you, Jeff, for all your incredible contributions to our Juneau community. Clown shoes can be pretty big, but you have always filled them completely.
Jeff, this is Tom Paul. You're the reason I got back into radio a dozen years ago. You knew it would make my life richer and more fun. And now our smiles will be even bigger because we'll be in a studio named after you. What an asset you have been to public radio, to the community, and to our family over the years. You are legendary and well deserve this. Jan and I send our love to you, Maureen, Callie, and Colin.
Hi, Jeff. It's Katie Bosler. I think you were the first person I met when I walked into K2 for the first time 30 years ago. You showed me how to run the board and so much more. Your office was a colorful Grand Central station of music for the We Like Kids radio show. I remember the thrill in your voice, announcing the birth of your own kid, Callie. Thank you, Jeff, for your positive influence on the airwaves and the lives of generations of kids of all ages.
Hi, Jeff. It's DJ TC, aka Trish. Congratulations on the studio dedication. Thank you for your devotion to public radio, your endless support of the volunteer DJs, and wholehearted commitment to making the world a more fun place. For all that you have done for the K3 stations and for the Juneau community, a studio dedicated to you is a very fitting tribute. Bravo!
I want to thank everyone who contributed to that video, as well as Miko Wilson and David Waters and Cheryl Snyder for helping to put that together, and Will Mader, they're helping us out with some additional footage. And from the family of Jeff Brown, if you have old photographs or videos or audio clips or anything like that, we would love to accept those and consolidate them on their behalf. You can email us juneauafternoon@ktoo.org or give me a call 907-463-6470. Again, that's juneauafternoon@ktoo.org or 463-6470 for any old pictures of Jeff, video, audio, anything that you got, please send it our way.
Thank you.